was a much lesser amount because as a steam building, we can isolate the heat much easier and better than we could with the heat that we had at Highland. So,
could you get that for us?
pardon me?
Could you get that?
Could you prepare something for us?
I will get
cost
that.
might be?
Yes.
What is, in your words, what are we tasking the task force to do?
Well, when I sent the initial letter out to the board, I basically used some of the same conversations and language that we used in the last time we had task forces. And from what my understanding is from the board, this is really narrowed to a singleton focus. It's about looking at your facilities, it's about looking at your footprint, going forward. So in my letter to the board, or to the people that we sent letters out to, we talked about review configuration of our existing elementary schools, all three of them. Review student enrollment trends and projections. We talked about that a couple of times already, Jen. Our numbers are not increasing as we know. We know we've got a bubble disbalance between Mullen and Riverview right now. We're probably the highest we've had since I've been here. And then I also listed possible configurations. UPK 4 at the 2 outbuildings, Mullen and Riverview. Maybe grade 5 goes up. Things that we talked about even during budgeting. Develop a timeline for community input and board action. We talked about the same study process we used last time. That is, we've got, I think, 2 boxes, Bonnie, maybe 3 boxes in my office of data that we used the last time. Long-range studies that have been done over the last several years, studies that were done during this last task force. All that data would come back again. My sense would be that the task force, however it's comprised, would look at that data and eventually come back at the board's pleasure at a specific time and report to the board, what are we recommending? Again, that's an advisory committee task force, ad hoc works for the board. So,
So at the very least, I'm sorry, at the very least, because we do need to take that school down to the lowest cost, we need to be fiscally responsible. At the very least, this task force is convening right now as we speak. Maybe one of the first presentations, it can be, this is where Central School is, this is what it's costing us. It's not able to be used as a school anymore because of these 10 reasons, but you are the ones that are looking at the footprint of the city. This is what the board might like you to do, but we'd also like your input on this. Like, can we sell it? Are you okay with us selling it, or should we? They might have some really great ideas. I have no idea what this task force is going to think about. But I do agree that to make that decision kind of for them kind of takes away.
maybe them is what we do it 2 ways. Listening to what you're suggesting, which is a good idea. I would still advocate that the board inform the community even as early as tomorrow.
Right.
That Central is closed. We are not using it. We will not be functioning for any purpose.
Okay.
We set aside a small subset of this committee to look at Central, as we did with the last task force, if you recall. Mr. Drizzo chaired that study as to what's going to happen with Highland. We auction those types of things. We can get that up and running very rapidly. Yes,
Has the committee already been chosen?
no.
Did letters go out to all prior committee members?
What we tried to do is to send letters to those persons who we believe off of Dr. Mill's list were on the elementary school facilities committee last time. My records, Jane.
What committee did I serve on last time?
I think you were on finance.
No, I was on 2.
And you were on the Clint Small, I believe.
Okay, and so every person who is going to be serving from the board on these committees?
It's not my decision. Not my
We
decision.
have interest, we have to appoint.
Okay, and how are we appointing? By experience, or how are we appointing?
We haven't discussed it yet.
Because I would like to discuss that.
So, well, going back, only the people who served on the elementary facilities, the task force.
This is Jane. I believe that's who we sent it to, didn't we not? We looked at
was-
Dr. Mill's list.
Yes. And then there apparently was a discrepancy about what Mills had versus what we had, although the list he had came from my desk. Based
What
on
about the
calls I
PTA, PTSA representatives? That was actually in our notes and actually suggested by Mr. Ogilvy himself, so someone should have been.
Wait, you're talking to.
You're talking about hiring.
You're talking about a search. We're talking about the task force for schools.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Was your original question to the other also?
It's a lot to deal with.
Go ahead.
Strickland's comments?
Sorry.
They were on the wrong.
Well, you know why? You guys started talking before. Did you like start the meeting? Because you started talking before.
No, you were just
No,
talking about
this is
This
just.
is just.
Well, that's why I'm like, I
We
wasn't
have
paying
15.
attention because you guys, I was talking over here and then I realized you guys were talking. I'm like,
No,
okay,
I did.
I miss the meeting starting or
Yeah.
something?
No, we just started it in order, otherwise we'd be sitting here for 20 minutes looking at each other. So
Well, I don't have a problem with that, but I
Conversation.
wasn't in the conversation in the beginning because I didn't think we started the
Yes,
meeting
we're
yet.
talking about the task force.
Thank you.
I just have one question before you go on. Did everybody get in their packet, did you get a chance to see what it cost us to have this facilitated the last time?
Yeah.
Okay, this is something we're gonna have to talk about in the very near future too. Do we want outside facilitation or do we wanna try to do it internally? So think about that because I would like to have that on the agenda for the next meeting so we can tell the task force how they will facilitate it.
So my question was,
Sorry.
if
To Ms.
We
Filter us.
if we don't have a good response from our people that were on the task force for the elementary facilities, could we then reach out to the other task force? Because obviously all of them had an interest in serving their community, so let's not exclude them.
I think that's a good idea, Sharon. Well, because they were all interconnected.
What has our response been so far?
I've probably gotten back about a third. There were 37 letters that went out. I have to count up them.
Hopefully we'll see tonight because they were all invited to come here tonight.
12?
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe we'll have a better idea after that.
I'm sorry.
I said maybe we'll have a better idea after tonight.
Let me just throw another thought out for the board. I hadn't even mentioned this to Jackie, because I was just thinking about driving over tonight. And as we just had the conversation about Central School, what the board may want to consider is if we were to, starting tomorrow, inform our community that Central is not going to be used for any purposes, that the intent of the board is to perhaps sell the facility, however we want to phrase it. So that's out, so everybody knows that.
But we need a letter to go out immediately to the historical
Well,
society.
exactly, and let
They
people
have to
know.
have a time frame.
And a time frame. We're looking to have everything removed at such and such a date, we can do that. But we can also then perhaps seek those persons who might be interested in looking at Central, and like we did with Highland, and come back and say, okay, here's some options, here's what you might want to consider with this facility. That's one part of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle, to be very honest, and I've been thinking about this again today, we've started the process of putting together task forces. This is long-range kinds of stuff, really. Okay, but it's also very, very important as we get into the 13-14 budget process, which happens at the end of December, January. So what the board may want to do, just a thought, is to try to form whoever the task force will be. And as Mrs. Cassell said, you know, we have other representative agencies, PTSA and other agencies that probably should be brought to the table because they have a voice for different groups. However that's decided, okay? And maybe later in the fall, like maybe early November, we have a kickoff meeting just to kind of clarify what the charge is, where you're going. And then when the new superintendent comes on board, which I think would be important for that person to be intimately engaged in this, that's when you really kick this thing off and you start making some decisions and start meeting. I'm not trying to say I'm going to do this, but I'm going to be 20 some odd days, I'm not going to be part of this process. And I think it would behoove the board and the district to have whoever that superintendent is going to be part of the process. It's critically important that they be the driving force in this. I think, as Jackie just said, another question that the board has to wrestle with is who's going to facilitate it. Because last time, purposely, we went outside and brought an outside facilitator in. We had staff on board who were at those different meetings to kind of facilitate, to assist the facilitator, but we had an outside facilitator. don't hear the board suggesting at this point at least that that's what they want to do, which is okay.
I think it's different this time too because there's not students in the building.
Well, that's the central issue. That's central school. I'm talking the whole, I'm talking the big one.
Where are you?
What are the options for facilitator? We either pay big bucks, we find somebody in the city that could have, what am I looking for? You know, reason, like, what am I,
Experience?
not experience. To get the thing flowing in a way that they want it to go rather than bias. Could have bias. So, what are our options? We either pay big money, and I'm not saying we don't have experienced people in the community, we absolutely do, but how do you,
Well, one of the,
unless you have like 4 or 5 leaders so that they can prevent the bias, you know, working together.
you really need to have a person facilitate. And I think you're right, and you hit the term, Jen. I mean, you want to be careful when you do something like this since it has such a tremendous impact long range on the district. You've got to be cautious of the bias, because if there are people that is the quote leader on the inside, there's already built-in bias. That's not, I'm not saying that's a pro or a negative, it's just, it's a fact. Okay? And, you know, there are agencies out there that do this type of work. If the board wants, I can canvass and report back pricing and here's what their experience are. There are people out there that can do this. Okay? If that's what the board wants to do. The way it was designed last time, again, purposely, was to bring Dr. Mills in, totally from the outside. He was the facilitator. Now, Mrs. Scully, for example, Mr. Bridenstine, for example, Mr. Drizzo, for example, they went to those different group meetings, and they didn't really run them, but they were kind of, they were the boots on the ground. Mr. Maziar also played a pivotal role in that kind of stuff. So you can still do that. So,
Does BOCES have anything like that that we could use for a very low cost? I mean,
if the board wants, I guess I will try to tomorrow come up with a list of different agencies that I'm aware of and seek them out and see if there's an interest to do some long-term planning for the board and then they get back to the board.
I'd love to have some options in this.
I would agree. I really would.
I just wanted everyone to be aware of what we paid the last time, which is why you received that long outline in your packet. Okay. This is another little informal discussion. We are going to begin the meeting tonight by rising to say the pledge. I'll follow that moment of silence in remembrance of that moment. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, would you all join me in singing God Bless America? God bless America, land that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the valleys, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America,
Trustee Mr. Starr?
Here.
Trustee Mrs. Meisters?
Here. Great, now we're going to move into the work. So we're we were talking about the task force because we had like 20 minutes between our workshop ended and this. And for those of you that weren't here till 6:30, Dr. Van Tyne is going to briefly recap it.
Thank you, Mrs. Motion. Welcome to our meeting this evening, and welcome to all those persons who are joining us for task force conversation. As we just talked with the board, we had sent out a couple, 3 weeks ago to members who had served, that we believe was an accurate list of people who had served on a previous task force that we had about 3 years ago to look at the issues of the elementary schools and reconfiguration. And one of the things that the Board of Education has been discussing this last spring and into the summer is exactly that issue again. As I've reported on a couple of occasions, the district student population continues to decline. We've done cohort studies over the last several years. Right now, and Mrs. Scullion in a moment is going to tell you what our open enrollment is, but it's less than 1,900 pupils. It's around 1,830, 40, something of that nature, district-wide. We have several issues. We have also a differentiation and balancing between Mullen and Riverview elementary schools right now, probably the highest since I've been here in the 5 years I've been in the district. There's more students attending Riverview than Mullen. The middle school, high school population continues to go down. They're under 1,000 pupils this year. They're about 900 plus. So the cohort survival study, which is a review of over 5 to 10 years of growth and birth rates in the school community, shows the district in about 2020 being less than 1,600 total pupils for the entire district. And I mentioned that in the last meeting we talked about the fact Business First, which is a business journal in the area, just reported on the decline of enrollment for schools in Western New York. Tonawanda City School District has one of the higher declines of student populations. In its high water mark, like most districts in Western New York, from what I can gather by reading the history, this district at one time had over 5,000 pupils in the district and has continued to go down. In fact, when I came into the district 5 years ago, we were about 21 to 2,200 kids. So you can see, even in that short span of time, we continue to lose students. So the board is cognizant of that. They recognize the fact that we have buildings. We now are operating 4 separate sites, middle school, high school being a singleton complex now. And the decisions have to be made as to what's it going to look like in the future. Where are the students going to attend? As those who recall 3 or 4 years ago, when the decision was made to close Highland, that caused quite a bit of conversation in the community. There were those that were pro, there were those who were con. Part of that whole conversation also then led into task forces. We just talked about that. One of those task forces was to look at Highland, what to do with Highland. How should we move that off the district's roles? That was one committee. The other committee was the whole issue of Clint Small, and should or shouldn't that be relocated to land adjacent to the high school. And the third was to look at the reconfiguration of our elementary schools. And after a lot of data, a lot of discussion by those task forces, recommendations came back to the board. The first one was on Highland. The recommendation was to sell the building. We did that. We also, interestingly enough, at the same time had the old 202 Broad Street, the administrative building, also on the docket, and also properties across the street from the Highland building. The second was the capital project, which is the Clint Small and other modifications to the district facilities. And the third was reconfiguring the district. And when we went from 4 elementary schools, we went to 3. We now have our 4th and 5th grade students attending Fletcher, and we have UPK 3 at Mullen and Riverview. So the question that we've been having the last couple of months with the board is, what happens next? What if those numbers continue to go down? What if there's not enough students to put in the seats in those classrooms? What are we going to do as a district? Do we continue to operate those buildings, or do we make other decisions? And so we've sent out letters of invitation to members who were on the past task force. Many of you were with us this evening. And we just had a conversation with the board as to how we get this thing moving. And there's kind of 2 separate issues. And if I'm hearing correctly, if my hearing aids are on this evening, there's 2 issues. One is central, which we've been talking to the board about as well. We're going to be contacting our neighbors in the city agencies in the city, letting them know that that building is no longer functioning. We have no programs in that building. The Teacher Center, which we are in partnership with Grand Island, is moving to the high school. We've been working with Dr. Newt and Mr. Mazier on that process. That will take place later in the fall. The Historical Society of Tonawanda uses space in that building. We're going to contact them and indicate that by such and such a time, we'd like to have them find a different location for that equipment. Mr. Mazier uses Central for a lot of his stock of materials. We need to work with Mr. Mazier to find, if we do shut that down 100% and sell it, another location for all that material. So that's step one. The other step would be to come back maybe at the end of September with a task force comprised of, I'm not sure yet who will be on that task force. We have lots of conversation to have tonight. I know that there's concern that it be as cross-representative as possible, which I would certainly encourage 100%. We have agencies that have interplay with the district. They should be part of that conversation. And then, as I just said before we started the meeting, it would be my suggestion to the board that another major issue that they have to deal with, which is, I would humbly suggest, maybe the most important, is the replacement of the superintendent. And that person, I think, really should be a pivotal part of this conversation. So I'm suggesting the board start the process by getting the committee together. We've presented some basic charges for that committee, which are the same charges that the last task force had. They were verbatim from the same language. Start thinking about meeting later in the fall, maybe November as a kickoff, because this does have budget ramifications as well. Maybe not this coming year, but certainly into the future. So with all that said, that's, I believe, where we are with the board at this time, unless I wasn't listening carefully.
No, we just discussed facilitation.
I want to make sure I heard this right. Are you suggesting you put a superintendent search committee into this task force?
No.
What are you suggesting by
I'm suggesting the board has a major task ahead of it, which is the replacement of the
Board has a
superintendent.
task.
Exactly.
I was still on the point, still on it,
Well,
and I'm like, what are you talking
And
about?
my point, Jen, is this, is I think the superintendent, whoever that person may be, should be part of this conversation and not have it ahead of
Okay,
them
thank
before
you.
they come in. That's what I meant.
All right, thank you for clarifying.
What if there is not a superintendent in place to hold this off past, sorry. If there is not a superintendent in place by, say, the target date of November, can you hold off the meeting until there is one in place?
No, what he was saying is that we just hold off the kickoff until November, and then get it fully functional when by the time the new superintendent comes on board.
Okay, so
That way,
there's not a lot of time for him to, he or she to
Right.
ramp up to what
right,
conversations. Okay, all right.
if that's agreeable. And this, still, it's open for discussion.
I think the whole idea of the task force is that they work together as a group, and then they work as an advisory to the board and superintendent. So they're
It's just a suggestion. The other question the board had, and we talked about, Mrs. Smillich already raised it, who's going to facilitate? You know, last time you had an outside facilitator, and again, for those who didn't join us beforehand, that was truly done purposely, so there was as little bias as could possibly be brought to the task. And from my opinion, you need to have that. It's tough, first of all, on our staff, because they already have full plates to deal with. You know, and as I said to the board, if they want, starting tomorrow, I'll look for outside agencies that can provide that service to the board and bring back some suggestions and options to the board at the next meeting. Just say, these are other people that do this kind of work, here's the price of it, that kind of stuff. So, you want to add anything to it?
The people who were on the task force previously, you want to stand up so we can see how
Jeff,
many
I
came?
can ask you that.
Please.
Right. Stand up.
We thank you very much for coming, and hopefully you will put the same amount of time and effort into this new task force. We do have a lot to discuss as a board as to how we're going to handle it. So for the next meeting, we'll talk about facilitation and a timeline. I think we need to get a timeline before we ask the people to come forward and make the commitment. They need to know, to have an idea of what it is that they're committing to. So I'm open for ideas, let me know what you think, and we'll get it on the agenda for the next meeting. Is it agreeable to everybody? Any other suggestions or comments? Would the members of the task force like an opportunity to speak on anything at this point?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Well, I wasn't on this task force. I was on the Highland School, Central School, and I think you're making a big mistake by eliminating not only that one, but the Clint Small one. Granted, we don't have all the information these other people have, but we got information on Central School, Highland, the high school, all of this. And there wasn't that many people, so I think they should be included in this.
Thank you.
Yeah, can we look at people like Jay Holler, the people that are within the community, that know the community, to be in charge of our task for this time so we can get some better input from the outside?
Any other comments? Yes.
Was Mr. Smollett referring to him being the facilitator potentially?
Mr. Smilovich, were you suggesting that Mr. Holler be the facilitator?
Yes, I was.
Okay, no, I just wanted.
Yes, I was. He's past superintendent, knows the district, lives in the district. What better educator could you ask for?
No, I just wanted to.
Well, add him to the list, thank you. Any other suggestions?
I'd just like to mention, I know that the last task force we had, Dr. Mills, who did a great job, but the one before that, some of the folks remember too, that it was Dick Catlin and Dr. Newton who led us through that one. And again, there was local people then, and I guess I agree with Mr. Smilovich, that they knew our community well. And it was nice to have people who knew and understood the nuances of Tonawanda lead the way. So I just wanted to echo that we've done it two different ways so far, and there's pros and cons to each.
Yes, there is. Okay, any other question or comments from the task force? Okay, we're now going to move into the regular portion of the meeting, so if you want to stay, task force members, you're more than welcome to. If not, thank you for coming. First off, I'd like to thank the building people for moving all the tables down here from the high school. Apparently, when we decided to do these visitations in the schools, we forgot there were little children in here, other than we'd be sitting on the floor, everybody. So, thank you to your staff. Okay. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of August 28th?
So moved.
Mr. Shaw?
Second.
Mrs. Libby? All in favor? Aye. Abstentions? Okay. Motion carries. May I have a motion to approve
Wait,
the...
can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, it should have been before. I'm sorry. I
You
didn't
can
ask
ask
for
any
it.
questions or comments.
Go ahead.
No. I just wanted to say I was unable to attend the meeting of the August 28th, and I just wanted to say that I want to wish you best wishes, Dr. Grantine, and accept your resignation for Brett also.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of August 30th?
So moved.
Ms. Stewart?
Second.
Mr. Starr? Questions or comments?
Are these the minutes that we just received?
No. The minutes that you just received are notes from the
Okay.
workshop. That's just for your
Okay,
reference.
that's what I was confused on. Okay,
The minutes were in your...
yes, I thought
Okay.
it says minutes, so that's why I was confused by that. It says minutes up there.
Right. And in case you weren't here when we were discussing it earlier, I asked Bonnie offered to give them to us, and I figured we covered so much when Dr. Ogilvy was giving us our directives for the superintendent search, it would be good to have it in writing, so
I
that's.
see what I vote if I was
Sorry
voting
for the
on that.
confusion.
Madam President?
Yes.
Since we do have a large amount of the community and the media is here, could you go over for the community the way we are going to conduct this search? Because there is some milling around in the community. You
Sure.
know, why we are doing a search, why are we not just concentrating internally, just so that we can,
We can do
let
that, yes.
everyone be well aware of those.
And we will do that right before verbal communication.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Great idea. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, this meeting was supposed to have been taped.
He's right behind you.
I didn't even see him there. So, Mr. Lodovico has asked the board to identify which site you would like to use for the posting of the videotape of this meeting. Mr. Trapp, you want to?
The only concern is, and it's mostly not so much the business end of the meeting, but when you have certain special recognitions and you have children and you're putting them out, depends on where you're putting it out on the website or wherever, and whether or not there have been parental consents already granted or not granted, it's something you have to consider.
Could he possibly stop taping during that time,
If,
so we don't run into a legal issue?
if it's linked on the district website, is that still acceptable?
It
Because
would
it's,
depend on whether or not, for example, let's say you have one child who the parents don't want the child on, and
Right.
that child is included in
obviously
special
that is,
recognition.
yes.
And if you were just showing the pictures, that's one thing. But usually when you have the special recognitions, it's, yeah, it's a lot more personal, and you're showing them and talking about them. And yeah, one option is obviously before you do that, you go through and check off each one to make sure that they've got approvals out there.
Couldn't we just not include the special recognition and just have it
Yep,
begin
that's one way
taping
to do
after?
it. And just do your business meeting.
And just do the actual meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, community information.
I mean, then you don't have to worry about it at all.
Because right now, the way that it's set up, the children in the first row are on, so I would hope that their parents are okay with that. Correct? That's what you're saying?
Well, there's no names on there.
There are no names attributed to it.
Okay. Just
So
wanted to
that's
clarify.
less of a concern, but when you're doing the special recognitions,
We're naming that.
you're naming names.
And the school they're at.
Are you allowed to
Right.
make a statement saying this meeting will be videotaped and broadcast on, if you're not okay with that, like you're allowed to do anything like that too?
You can put it on the website, but you still have the issue with the specific consents that the parents sign or don't sign at the beginning of the year. And that consent in and of itself isn't going to be, the notice in and of itself isn't going to be enough.
I just thought because it was a public meeting, if you choose to come to a public meeting, like,
And the part about the public meeting is fine, that's why, people are sitting out in the audience and that's not the issue. But the question is when you take it a step further and now you're recognizing them and putting their names and everything else out. Unfortunately, the laws haven't kept up with the technology, and that's what we're finding now. So it's very much an issue in flux. And it's really a question of whether or not, from the district standpoint, if the district wants to test to see how things
it's
work
just a
out.
shame because I think some people, like grandparents, would be excited to be able to go onto
Absolutely.
the website and see their grandchildren if they live in another state, say, oh, I got recognized, and they could actually see it, so it's like, it's hard. You don't want to be sued, but you also have to mind those things.
So, Mr. Trapp, by having the students listed on the agendas and having that posted on our website,
No,
is that
because
acceptable?
that isn't the problem because you don't have the link. It's the link of the face and the name and everything.
Just wanted to
That you're
clarify.
going beyond just the regular directory information.
Would it help, Chris, if on the agenda, which is posted electronically as well as paper-wise, there's a disclaimer that says meetings will be videoed?
No, it is a good idea to put that on just so
And do
people
we
are aware.
send invitations to the students? Can't we put something on there
Maybe we
stating
can add that
to the
to it,
parents,
that's-
just so
that's
you know
gonna be
the
taped.
meetings will be videotaped if you're.
Good idea.
No, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that would basically warn
I mean,
them
the
if
more-
they don't
more
want
types
their
of-
child to attend.
More times we're letting
videotaped.
people know.
The more notice, the better off you are.
Right.
what I'll do is see how others have handled this type of issue, and if there have been any decisions, then I'll let you know before the next board meeting.
Well, what about other districts? I know, like,
Yeah, that's one
That's
thing
what
to
he just
check.
said.
That's one
We're
check.
gonna check other districts.
I know they do their links, yeah, what they want on their cable coverage.
Okay. Are there,
So back to your original, obviously we need to take care of that, back to your original question of what mode is best. It really, I think, comes down to the edit time of how long it takes to get onto YouTube, how is going to best put it, what system works best to put it onto the district website of the three. And I feel like he has the qualifications to answer that far better than we do.
We should have,
So I think he needs to say, this is what's best.
What you would recommend?
Yes.
we need to find out.
Can Dylan say something to mine, like he's the one that's videoing?
Oh, we would love,
Is that
sure,
okay, or-
sure.
One thing I was going to say about the recognition is that people could use video the recognition of their child, and if you hand out permission slips to the parents, and the parents do not want their child to be recognized on internet access, we could drop and delete that section of their child out. We still have the other children that their parents allow to be recognized on the video if you would like.
thank you.
Very good, thank you.
That's nice. So basically, then you just put that on the invitation,
On the letter.
on the letter,
And then
say,
other
we
parents
take
are-
this, if for any reason you don't want it, you need to let us know before the meeting. And then you're covered, right?
Yeah, 99.9% of the parents are going to be thrilled to have their children recognized. And the problem is, it's that 0.1% that end up in the court system.
Right. But if you have that wordage in there, where people have a doubt.
All of the more notice you have, the better it is.
Okay, may I ask a question? Yes. What are you going to do if the parent does not return it and the child shows up that evening for recognition?
Then we assume your parents said it was okay.
You have to have a sign on it.
So you have to sign
You
off
can't-
on it? Only if they want it out of it, you have
Well,
to sign off on it.
if they can delete them from the tape, then we just won't put them in there.
I thought they only would be removed if they signed off that they wanted to be removed. Do you know what I'm saying?
So unless you contact us, assume you're going to be
Right.
in this video.
Yes, what does the letter,
Know that you will be in
we need
this
to
video.
know exactly what the invitation says.
It simply says you're being honored for X, Y, Z at the following board meetings before your company. That's basically what it says. But we can put on there
We can
that
change the
meetings are being videotaped. If you do not want that, then please notify us. This is your release form. And maybe at the meeting when they come, we ask them to fill out a real quick release. You just said, Mr. Chair, we don't want to overkill this thing either.
And you may already have a release up from the parents as at the beginning of the year, so it may not be an issue.
That's the work we can't afford to do.
All right, Mr. Shaw?
Just one final question, I know Bonnie mentioned it. Who's going to do the editing?
The students are.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Just want to make sure.
I know, I don't want to fill it that for you, but I am so very grateful. I hope you're getting a lot of extra credit. This is something that I wanted to have happen for our community for a couple of years now, and it's finally happening, so I did something good. Thank you.
And I think the community aspect is what really is driving us wanting it to be taped. So that the business portion of the meeting, not discounting the children and their wonderful contributions, but the business portion of the meeting so that the community can see what's going on and keep up to speed if they're not able to be here, be it work schedules or children, no matter what it is. So that is the most important thing, and I think while we hammer out the other details, we focus on, as Mrs. Simone said, the business portion of the meeting to keep our community informed.
Okay, thank you. Are there any deletions or additions to the old business list? None? All right, for the superintendent's search, there will be a community group comprised of 30 people plus, 30 or so people from various groups within the community, and about 25 people on a forum. The reason the board chose to do this rather than just to appoint someone is that this board believes in true shared decision-making. And in true shared decision-making, this is the process that's in place. We chose Dr. Ogilvy after a discussion. His BOCE's price was right, and the services are basically the same whether you use a consultant from one of the colleges or you use BOCE's. What we get from BOCE's is that we don't have to pay that fee of $10,000+ for the services. So we're getting the same for less money, and that was one of the concerns of the board, was the cost. I will entertain questions about the search right now if anybody has any.
How are we deciding who's serving on, have we made up a list of who's serving on?
No, everybody was supposed to send me names, and I haven't received any yet.
Names?
Names
Yeah.
of what?
Names or groups.
We have them listed in here.
No, this is, you know what, we probably need another workshop in order to just set that up in itself. So, what about next Tuesday? Because we're supposed to have the group done by the 25th. Is everybody right?
We had the community forum.
The community forum is the 25th. So how about either the 17th or 18th, Monday or Tuesday?
Because I was under the impression the list that we had, that we talked about that day, would be included, and then if we had any additional ones that we wanted included, that we were supposed to give them.
That was his suggestions to us. It's up to us to tweak it.
No, well, I believe we all agreed at what he suggested. We said if we had any additional people to add, to give you. So I'm just making sure that the people that he listed are being considered on this committee.
And I think that's what we need to do in the workshop,
Okay.
is determine exactly how many people we're going to have, because he said 25 to 30, and then he said about manageability, and he also offered an idea of how many that should come from each of the schools, and which would not leave much left over for community members. So there's some things that I think that we really need to look at as a board in order to make this true shared decision making. So if everybody's available Monday or Tuesday. Ms. Howard?
I'm sorry, I'm just not clear on where you're coming up with the names of people for this committee? Is it the
There
board?
hasn't, the names, okay. When we sat with Dr. Ogilvy, he gave us groups that should be included.
The PTA, PTSA.
The administrators, so many teachers, so many people from the unions, from each school building. And then on top of that, he gave us ideas like senior groups, the Chamber of Commerce, that kind of people. So the people that actually will be on this committee have not been talked about by the board since that time.
So the board will decide out of that list that comes to you?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's clear on that.
We will decide what we're, well, I can't say yes to that. We have to decide that. Okay? Ms. Stewart?
I'm just like sort of looking under the search committee portion of the minutes that
Okay,
Bonnie
good.
gave us, just to help me out here.
Thanks, because we just got it tonight.
It was, what he had suggested is that the different groups that the board looks to be the president of these groups, because they're already the leaders of these groups. The president of the Chamber of Commerce, the president of the unions in the buildings, leaders that are already established within the groups, and as those leaders of those groups, put those folks forward as the advisory committee. Leaders within the community, whether it's the president of the senior citizens, however, they're
Elected by their peers.
They've been elected by their peers as the leader of their group, and they go forward in this type of committee.
Right. That's what he recommended.
Right. Just so that no one thinks that the board's doing eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
Oh, no, we're not
Not
going to
at
do
all.
that.
Well, that's not what I'm saying, Sharon.
Yeah, no, I
Would
just
you
want.
also accept nominations from the community?
Yes, I think if any community member wanted to come forward with it, they should contact the board member.
Okay.
All right, but the community doesn't know that, so.
Right,
Yeah.
but the newspapers are here, and hopefully they'll put that in there.
So, Monday or Tuesday?
Mr. Shaw?
Monday or Tuesday, we'll Tuesday?
Let's do Monday.
Monday?
Can we possibly do Tuesday? I really can't do Monday.
What's the date? Does anybody know the date?
17th is Monday, the 18th is Tuesday.
18?
Everybody can make it the 18th? Okay, so we'll have-
What time?
What time and location?
What was that, Ms. Mentors?
I would have preferred Monday, but.
Is Tuesday a no?
No, it's,
Okay.
I'll try it.
Well, what about Wednesday?
I can't do Wednesday.
Tuesday would be better than Wednesday.
Tuesday or Thursday?
We'll do Tuesday.
Tuesday, 18?
It's the Mary.
Tuesday at 6 o'clock in the Farmer Boardroom. Yep. Tuesday, 6 o'clock. So if there's any community members that are interested in being on this, please contact a board member prior to Tuesday. Mr.
And one other thing with the fee that Mr. Ogilvy is charging, it is not a fee for him personally, it's an
Right.
administrative fee.
It's for the services.
Exactly, it's not a stipend.
Verbal communications. At the last meeting, there was a question regarding why an item was being tabled on the agenda and why members of the task force were not in attendance at that meeting. Both questions received answers at that meeting. Mr. Halgash also provided information about the purchase of TNT shirts. We will now follow the guidelines regarding public comments as outlined in the agenda. If there's anyone wishing to speak at this time, please come forward to this center area. State your name and your address, please.
Linda Harrington, I work for Niagara Community Action Program. Joey Gershio, I work for the Salvation Army. The reason we're here is the TNT gang. We both run food pantries. I'm on the Niagara side of the bridge, and she's on the Erie County side of the bridge, so we have a little rivalry going. And we work with the Food Bank of Western New York that distributes all our food. So what we're requesting is whether or not we'd be able to be at the TNT game with barrels and put flyers out to the schools on either side of the bridge, kind of competitive thing between the two different sides of the bridge, and collect lots of food, fight it out a little bit, and then share it all.
And you're going to tow it away?
Then we're going to tow it away. Yep.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
What about during TNT week, having barrels in
Yeah,
the
right in the
schools?
schools.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and having, because the kids do so much, ramping up for that week, having it there too, at Powder Puff, and
Mr. Travis, is there a problem with that? Okay.
And the reason
Ms. Jane, can we put that as a motion on the next board meeting, please?
they have to fill out facility.
Yeah. That'll give you time. You'll have to fill out the facility usage reports, okay? You do that by the next meeting, we'll have it on the agenda. It's a great idea.
Thank you.
Wait, can you
Ms. Cassell?
repeat what you just told me? I want to repeat what you just told me about the little girl.
Oh, these kids, you know, you're talking about kids and pictures, and I think these 3 kids that are here is my coworker Jessica's children. It was really their idea.
Their idea.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's a great idea. Can they stand?
Awesome.
So we can see them?
There you go, great idea.
Thank you, ladies. It's ideas like that that keep the world going. Are there any other questions or comments? Then Dr. Van Tyne and his staff will provide us with updates at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Milnich. We're going to have a couple of quick reports from a couple different administrators this evening. Thank you, ladies. I received some information the last couple of days, question concern basically regarding athletics and jerseys, and I've asked Mr. Halgish if you could kind of let us know what is or is not taking place with that. So, Mr. Halgish, if you would inform the board as to what's going on.
At the parent fall meeting, we did indicate to the students and their families family members that we needed to curtail the wearing of their uniforms during school. So what I had done prior to that was communicate to the coaches new kind of rules, if you will, to wearing the uniforms during school. We're running into an issue where a nice tradition was turning into just open door session on wearing uniforms. We were having some teams wearing their full uniform during the entire day, and when you're spending $2,400 on a set of uniforms, for kids to be wearing them on a full day basis and then using them for their actual sport activity, it tends to wear them out quickly. And then we also had, if they had a home game, everybody else was wearing, and there were really no guidelines. It was just everybody, students, graduates, were wearing their away jersey or home jersey, whatever the opposite was. And it just became kind of, like I said, open season on what it was going on. So I just contacted the two major sports that actually participate in this activity, football being one. The rule with football is that we created with Coach Gross, who I tried to do his best to communicate to his boys, but even that, it became a little unclear with them. They are to bring their away or home jersey, whatever the opposite is that they're wearing on Friday, to whoever they want to wear it to school that day. They put it on at school. They wear it throughout the school day, just like they always traditionally do. And at the end of the day, we ask them to collect it. Reason being is last year, those jerseys are $50 a piece. And last year, the embroidering came back, even on days they never wore them, pink. Because the person wearing them as their friend, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever it was washing it and it bleached it out, and so now their uniform was pink. And so then we have to get it restitched or replaced. So we ask that they at least give it back to the athlete at the end of the school day, and to refrain from putting perfume or any kind of cologne on it. As far as the girls' soccer and the guys' soccer, we'd ask that they only wear the maroon jersey. Therefore, during cafeteria time or any kind that they're eating, we don't get any stains on the white jerseys. So every day they wear, I know it's crazy, but or it's even gotten to this point where I have to explain to the board, but they have to wear the maroon shirts. No more shorts. If they want to wear the maroon shorts, let it be their own, not the school shorts. And their game socks, which we provide for them. Their game socks we provide for their teams. And those are made for the athletic event, not made to be worn during any day all day long, or they get holes in them. And then every single time they do that, they go to the coach and say, have another pair at home. Well, there's a reason why. So we'd ask that as well. And then again, if they're going to bring their uniform in, they just make sure that it's maroon. So nothing's really changed, just some protocol things to help elongate the lifespan of the jerseys.
So that eliminates parents wearing jerseys too? I mean,
No.
my son, oh, okay.
Nope, I didn't say anything about that.
Parents,
Nope,
okay.
I didn't say anything about that. The only thing
Clarify that.
that I clarified and tried to control was the time frame that it was being worn with the kids. Parents oftentimes are the ones that clean the uniforms, and oftentimes have the greater respect for the uniforms. They pretty much take care of them. That's not an issue. The issue is with our students and allowing other students. And the point where it was kind of the tipping point is when I saw graduates who weren't even going to the school anymore wearing our uniforms. And then I was like, okay, this is a role. We need to have some kind of a guideline. So that's what I
You mean by graduates wearing them?
Former students of Tonawanda wearing our current uniforms.
Like a friend?
Their friend would give it to them, and then they would come to the
To
game.
support the person on the field?
Right. So it's a little too open.
So if you're dating someone who's graduated.
See, I have a
So
problem.
did you address the game night as well? Because you said they bring them back to the end of school. What about at the game night?
Right. At the end of the day. That's all I ask. At the end of the day.
Not the school day, end of the day, but after a football game.
Yeah.
Just so there's no.
On game days for football, it would be after the end of the game.
Oh, so it's It's at the end of the game, not the end of the school day.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to bring them home and cleaning them. That's my biggest issue. Don't take it upon yourself. Yes. And don't put perfume and cologne. That's the only thing was my, and it snowballed into a interesting event. So, that's kind of the, I don't think I was asking much.
So that,
but,
just let me understand what you said.
okay.
They can, you can give her your jersey, and she has to give it back to you after the game.
Right. And please do not put the cologne or perfume.
And don't wash it. You want it
And don't
back
wash
dirty
it.
with no cologne.
Let that be the player's responsibility.
But does it matter if it's their parent, their cousin, their brother, their sister, a friend of theirs? I mean, to me, it should not matter who it is. They want somebody to represent them. They're encouraging somebody on the field. Like, we never discriminated against who is allowed to wear the jersey.
Well, I just think it personally, I think it's just getting out of hand when you're allowing.
Have we ever had a jersey, like, have we ever had a player not be able to play because of something like this?
Actually, yes, we had a player lose their number and was very upset because their uniform was basically ruined.
Okay.
Because the person wearing it had perfume or cologne, I don't remember what it was, but it was on it. They tried to wash it, it ruined it, it's peeled the number off, so then they had to use their other number. And it's not like I can just go to the store and buy these things. It takes
No, I understand that.
3.5 4 weeks to order.
I just know the tradition, and I just know it's been around for a very long time, and I just have a problem with something being changed overnight for a frivolous reason. I just want to make sure that it's still going to be a good tradition.
I don't think I'm asking too much. I mean, there's a lot of kids wearing their uniforms and letting other people during the school day, and oftentimes you have parents wearing their kids' uniform, which is great. I went through that myself. But at some point, it gets to the point of being out of control, and I felt like this. I don't know how many times I'm going to be able to buy uniforms like we used to. My budget was cut drastically, like everybody else's, and I don't know where I'm going to come up with the money all the time to come up with jerseys. So we have to elongate the lifespan.
If they lose their jerseys, are they required to replace them? Are they charged for them?
Yeah. Okay.
And
We don't have a problem with losing jerseys.
are seniors still allowed to buy their jerseys at the end?
The football team, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the football team does have the option. And the reason being that is football uniforms usually stay in stock 10 years, around 5 to 10 years within stock. A lot of the other sports, they tend after 2 years, they get rid of that style and they move on to another one. So it's very hard to constantly restock my inventory. So that's why it's easier with the football programs. And then you have some sports where, I know when I went to high school, that you part of joining the varsity football team was you purchased your uniform. There was no question. That was part of the deal. So, but some schools do it differently. Purchase at the end or purchase at the beginning.
I think we've done it both ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, at the end of the day, since Mr. Halgish is the director of athletics, he needs to be able to decide how he's going to orchestrate this process. Thank you. Steve, busing. We had a few glitches the first week. I know you've been meeting with Rainbow. We'll be talking to them, trying to rectify those situations. So if you could maybe give the board a sense of where we are, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. The district had a very smooth opening day. There were a number of transportation issues that occurred after that. But again, this is normal for the first 2 weeks of school. Those transportation issues, mostly bus stop change requests and last-minute registrations, will be addressed by the end of this week. We try to focus on getting the younger children taken care of first and the older children taken care of after that. The district only has one person that's addressing all of the literally hundreds of student-related requests of all nature. Each of these has to be coordinated with the transportation company, the building administration, and 3 software programs that do not talk to each other, which is a real problem when you have to re-input information 3 times. From a global point of view for the district, it's been a very good opening. We've had a few problems. They've been addressed, and we're moving on. There is question that has to do with transportation that has come up, and it may have come up in the past. And if I could, I'd like to canvass the Board of Education on whether or not the middle school and high school children should be allowed to ride the bus together. If the middle school and high school children were allowed to ride the bus together, the Board of Education Policy 5720 would need to be reviewed to possibly align the walking distances so they're the same for both the middle school students and the high school students. But if I could, I would like to canvass the board.
Could we do that at the next meeting so that the members of the board have a time to digest this, please?
Sure.
It's a big task that you're asking us. Stuart?
Could we have in our packets included what those busing lines would be?
Cost savings?
Cost savings, because that is a big decision to think about.
And that'll go on our agenda for the next meeting.
I believe also, Mrs. Stewart, there could be potential of saving time and route drop-off and pick-up times if we did that as well. We'll put all that in.
Right, and whether or not it would be lengthening the busing lines,
right,
which was a huge source of confusion during budget.
All of those things have to be considered, but also just consider that it is a 10-year-old and a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
So just think of those things too. Okay.
So we'll bring that back at the next meeting. And I also asked Mr. Mazier, the board did a walkthrough of the building tonight, but I'm going to ask him to kind of, since we have a nice crowd tonight, to kind of give an update on the Mullen roof, where we stand, what's taking place. We are actually gaining time back, which we're pleased to do. And also, there was a question regarding stadium, the seating over at Clint Small, so I asked Paul to kind of respond to that. So, Mr. Mazier?
Regarding the roof project, we did do a walkthrough here in the building tonight. The roof project here, which does consist of 37,000 square foot, is about 75% complete now. We have approximately 9,000 square foot to go in the northerly end of the building over the boiler room and one section on the other side of the auditorium. We've had some setbacks, as you've heard. We had some decking problems. Actually, the surface of the roof was not substantial enough to carry the weight of the new roof, as well as we interrupted or disturbed what was there, which really was minimal, put back in the years when the school was built in the 50s. So we did have structural engineers on site as soon as we ran into this, and we used the structural engineers from Wendell Dushire, our engineering firm and architectural firm, to make sure that everything was up to specification.